Hey, this is Dr. Snake here, just about to go for a drive to meet the devil himself at the Devil's Punch Bowl. Okay, so yeah, here we are at the Devil's Punch Bowl, which is at a place called Harling Drove, which is in Norfolk, England. It's fairly close to a village called Croxton. Anyway, the Devil's Punch Bowl, look, it's kind of a mysterious crater, like a pond, but a pretty damn big pond, to be fair. And it's likely called the Devil's Punch Bowl, due to filling up with water during a heat wave and being completely empty during long periods of rain. Yeah, it seemed weird. And also, it's almost perfect circle. But basically, it randomly fills or empties of water, seemingly at will. And it's no wonder people thought it was the work of the devil. But that amazes me really, because it could just as easily have been, the work of God. You could have called it God's punch bowl, but no, people don't do that. Anyway, that's only if you believe in invisible mystery spooks. Anyway, but then again, if it was called God's Punch Bowl, I suspect I wouldn't even be visiting it now, would I? But anyway, if the poet William Blake was still alive now, he'd likely have said I was of the devil's party, just like he said of John Milton. But anyway, we get down here, have a close look. But the truth about the truth about the Devil's Punch Bowl is it was formed during the Ice Age, and the subsurface chalk basically over many years, eroded to form an underground chasm, which eventually collapsed, and that created a sinkhole, which, looking it up, I believe is called a doline. But anyway, basically, it exposes the usually hidden water table, and thus water rises apparently randomly, then subsides. But the rainfall does come into it, but basically because of the water table being exposed, there's a big lag in time before the water rises, even after heavy rain. It just doesn't go straight into the water table, and and then it can rise when it's like a hot summer and a heat wave, and so a lot of people think, good God, or used to, because of this is folklore and whatnot and superstition. So yeah, this is a place where one can meet the devil himself. So there you have it, the Devil's Punch Bowl. We got the idea that it's a kind of natural sediment thing, so there's a scientific explanation for the water, rising during a heat wave, a lovely, long, hot summer. And say during sort of torrential rains going on for a few days during winter, the damn thing dries up. So we could dismiss that if it's a little bit windy, so I'll wait till it stops because it'll affect the audio. Yeah, so the wind died down. But so yeah, you could dismiss it, and just think. But when you think about it, you see the landscape and the mind of ancient peoples was very, very different to ours. They were a lot closer to the landscape, and I believe there was a kind of mind melding with the landscape. So everything that you kind of see became a kind of story, a sort of subconscious reality. And that, in a sense, was their technology, which is kind of subconscious technology, very, very different to ours, because we today are the big emphasis is on the conscious mind, language, mentation, self-talk, words, and that voice is very loud in our heads. And I'd contend, going with the late scientist Julian Jaynes, whose book's a rather long title, but it has the bicameral mind in it. And the contention there was that self-talk, interior dialogue, was far less pronounced in ancient times. And so self-talk is absolutely huge now with us in the modern world. But if you think in ancient times that it wasn't, then there would have been a lot of visionary, subconscious imagery, very much melding with the landscape. So trees, rocks had a kind of story surrounding them, a visionary story, and from which myths and legends developed. Possibly things like stone circles came out of that visionary landscape. There was a reason for them which actually we can't comprehend today. But I think the interesting thing is when self-talk did happen, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, that scientist Julian Jaynes said that when self-talk did come, they didn't know it was them. So it could well have been the voices of the gods. And that could have led to some problems, not all the time, but some of the time. Like you hear self-talk saying, war, sacrifice people, I guess you'll go and do it. It could be contended that it took quite a while for the human to realise that this talk internally was them, was you. I mean, can you imagine that when you hear your own self-talk, that you think it's someone else? I know we could say like schizophrenia, that happens, and maybe, it's just with schizophrenia, it's just a bit louder than other people. The voices, maybe they don't sound like them. Maybe they got a deep voice that says do this or something. It could be just that bit more like the volume knob's turned up a bit, and the equalizer, gets sort of slightly odd tone. So who really knows? But it's worth looking into, because it could well be that schizophrenics don't really have a condition apart from the volume knobs turn up a bit too high and the equalizer is a bit weird and it's a strange voice. I don't think it's seen as a condition, a pathology, but maybe it actually isn't. That's why we've got to look at what we may have been like. But obviously archaeology is not going to you can deduce things from it, and some psychologists, scientists do deduce, but it's speculation from that, because obviously we haven't got mind records. We can't see, we haven't even got them today really, except we can see a lot more of what goes on in people's minds from videos, social media, or at least it's their expression of self-talk, even if they're lying and making things up. From the ancient past, we've really got very little idea of what was going on. And there have been studies done of the Neanderthal, the sort of fellow species to us, Homo sapiens. And, there's an anthropologist and a psychologist on the job with that, and obviously they admit they're scientists, but they say, well, look, a lot of this is speculation. We're deducing what we can from what's known, and I do believe that their contention is the Neanderthal wasn't spiritual. They didn't really have religion or anything like that, and that's rather interesting. I must look into that a bit further. But these are things that we just don't even contemplate, do we? Can you imagine very, very similar to us? We have Neanderthal in us, even if it's only like 4%, especially Northern European peoples, can have up to about 4%. So, the Neanderthal, is very much the species, very much related to us. But these are things worth thinking about. But here we are, going off at a tangent at the Devil's Punchbowl. Maybe it is the devil's influence trying to tell me something, stuff we should know about the human mentation system and how it relates to the current pandemic or plandemic situation. And it could, when I say that, it might sound like a bit of a stretch, but not really, because the human mentation system problems can occur from it. You know, with the let's call it pandemic situation, there's what's called mass formation going on, which is kind of like mass trance, hypnotic trance. I do believe it used to be called mass hysteria. It means a large, or a group of people to a large group of people come to believe something that isn't actually true, and they will do everything to cement that as the reality, because I guess it comforts them or whatever, it does something for them. And so some scientists are saying that's what's happening now. 30% of the population is in mass formation or mass trance. And how that relates to what I'm talking about, anthropology, ancient peoples, is they had a mentation mind system that worked for them, and it may well have been times that went west too for various reasons. And so what we're looking at is a kind of, what was it, Kessler, I can't remember his first name, I can't remember, Arthur Kessler, I can't remember. But he had this thing about the ghost in the machine, us being the machine, and the ghost is like, the kind of problems that come from the mentation that goes on. So anyway, that's enough on this for now, and I'm going to clamber back up the hillside from the Devil's Punchbowl. I may talk later. Okay, yeah, I just bumped into somebody who lives locally. Obviously I don't know them, they're just walking their dog. So he said, oh, you found anything interesting, and I said to him, well, I was just making a video, saying about what I just told you all about from the bicameral mind Devil's Punchbowl. But what he was saying to me, because obviously you wouldn't get this on Google, but he was saying to me, yeah, locals call the Devil's Punchbowl, and there's a number of small ones that aren't as dramatic if you look around, and the locals call them pingos. He's got no idea why. Presume that's Pingo, pingo. So they call them pingos. And he said to Google Pingo Trail, which presumably people have kind of mapped out a trail to see the smaller, less dramatic Devil's Punchbowls all, in this area. He also pointed out that Devil's Punchbowl, almost like a natural amphitheater. And I think that's really interesting because, obviously when it's dry, which it's kind of a random thing, when it fills right up, at the moment it was kind of moderate, can fill up even fuller. And, other times, it's dry. And when it was dry, now if you go back to ancient peoples, obviously it's speculation, but I think it might well have been used as an amphitheater. And you can imagine when it was dry, that was kind of seen as the auspicious time to do whatever was done. If it was an amphitheater, of course, it might have been kind of ritual drama. But, but obviously it springs to mind there might have been human sacrifice going on as well. That again, speculation. It just makes you wonder, I've just got this thing about it, up here, there's a tumuli, which I'll make a special visit to, it'd be a tumulus. Tumuli is the plural, so I'll make a special visit for that. But what a tumulus is, essentially, archaeologists call them Bronze Age burial mounds. You find them on the Ordnance Survey maps, that's how you locate them, because they were recorded like many years ago, when the Ordnance people really mapped out Britain. I think they call them burial mounds because perhaps remains have been found, but there's still this idea they might well have been something else too, maybe dual purpose. And that's the curious thing. It might well have been a kind of magico-religious sort of mound built. The ones around here, they're not that high now, quite small. But, you know, then you think in Wiltshire, which is about, I don't know, 300, maybe about 200 miles away from me now. It's huge, absolutely huge man-made, you know, absolutely monumental man-made ancient mounds. You know, it's a very strange, you know, mysterious thing. You know, there's no real, what was it used for, you know? People don't know. So, yeah, I'll do them in another video, sort of the Pingo Trail. Gotta be worth doing, hasn't it? All depends on the weather. Obviously, it's rather temperate for January 2nd. Yeah, and then I'll do that tumuli, which isn't terribly far away, but I think it'd be worth me musing on it a bit, and then we'll do a visit and have a look around. Okay, so that's it for me for now. I'll see you later.